Hi, all. Thanks for joining us. We will give it another couple of seconds before we kick off. I see we have some folks trickling in. Okay, let me go ahead and kick us off. We have a pretty packed agenda for you today, so I want to make sure that we have time to get through it all. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful Thursday morning or afternoon, depending on where you are in the world, for our Doppel webinar, Disrupting Social Engineering and Financial Services. Just a few quick housekeeping notes. This webinar is being recorded. The recording and presentation will be sent to you immediately after. The chat is open. Please submit your questions and we'll try our best to answer them all at the end. And then lastly, our business development team will follow up after we conclude to answer any questions that we didn't get to live and to support you as needed. Before we get started, let's do some quick intros. My name's Jordan Waller. I am a senior product marketing manager at Doppel, running our DRP product line. I have years of experience in the external cybersecurity and social engineering space as it relates to financial services, and I'm excited to share that perspective with you today. I am lucky to be joined by Chris Palmer, Senior Sales Engineer at Doppel, who has 20 plus years of diverse experience in information and cybersecurity principles from USAF ISR communities to DoD contract agencies to the commercial space, leading and working with companies such as ArcSight, HPE Global SOC, Vulcan Cyber, Intel 471, SOC Radar, and Cyware Labs. So I wanted to start today's conversation with why social engineering in financial services is such a hot topic right now. The reality is, financial services isn't just a target, it's the target. Nearly a third of all phishing attacks are aimed directly at payment platforms and financial institutions, and that's not random. Attackers go where the money and where the trust is. The impact's massive, $4.6 billion lost to investment scams alone, making it the leading fraud category. And again, this isn't theoretical risk. This is real money leaving real customers' accounts. What's accelerating these types of attacks even further is AI. We're seeing a 442% increase in phishing attacks, where attackers use AI-powered social engineering to sound more credible, more human, and more convincing than ever before. The takeaway here is simple. The volume is up, sophistication's up, and financial service organizations are at the center of it all. And it's not just growing, it's evolving in really visible, high impact ways. What you're seeing here are real examples of how these attacks are showing up today. A news headline sharing a finance employee wired $25 million after a deepfake video call impersonating a CFO. That's the level of sophistication that we're dealing with. At the same time, you still have highly effective scaled attacks, phishing emails, fake bank pages, investment scams like the ones shown here, often impersonating trusted brands or executives to drive engagement. And then you have regulators stepping in, like this NYDFS letter from February, acknowledging that these AI-driven multi-channel attacks are becoming a systemic risk to financial institutions. And this isn't just a volume problem. It's a shift in how attacks are executed. They're more convincing, more targeted, and increasingly blending channels in ways that are much more difficult to detect and remove. Now, if we look at how this is actually playing out across channels, we see a pattern start to emerge. Attacks aren't concentrated in just one place. They're spread across social, messaging, and traditional channels like email. But what's been consistent the past 2 months is Facebook ads. In March, it's the top channel. And even as things shifted this month with email ticking up, Facebook ads is still right near the top. And again, that's not by accident. Facebook ads give attackers scale, precise targeting, and built-in credibility, which makes it incredibly effective for reaching financial services customers. So while channels may shift month to month, this is a strong signal that paid social is a persistent and reliable vector that attackers are using to target this industry. So now when you zoom out and look at what this actually means for financial service organizations, the threat landscape starts to come into focus. We see a surge in executive and broker impersonation. So AI generated messages and deepfakes that are being used to initiate high value transactions. These aren't your generic attacks. They're highly targeted and they're trust driven, often using a sense of urgency to exploit employees or customers. Right behind that's phishing and credential theft. And this has evolved well beyond just emails. It's now look like login portals, fake banking apps, even fraudulent contact center interactions designed to gain access to accounts. At the same time, there's growing regulatory pressure. Frameworks and guidance from NYDFS, NIST, and DORA are all starting to explicitly call out these types of threats, which raises the bar for how organizations need to respond. Layer on top of that brand abuse across channels, fake investment ads, spoofed websites, brand impersonation on social and messaging platforms, and it becomes a scaled customer facing problem. And with all of this, ultimately feeds into data exposure. So PII, credentials, payment data, which is what fuels ongoing fraud and erodes customer trust. So this isn't just one isolated issue. It's a connected set of risks that are expanding in both scope and impact relating to the financial services industry. And this is where the challenge really starts to break traditional defenses. So legacy tools were built to stop technical threats, but today's attacks are fast, AI-driven, and centered on manipulating people across channels. That's why they're increasingly able to slip past controls that were never designed for this level of speed or this level of sophistication. And this is exactly where Doppel comes in. So Doppel Vision is the only unified solution built for social engineering defense, designed for protecting financial service organizations facing these modern AI-driven threats. We start by continuously scanning across channels to identify threats targeting your brand and your executives, and importantly, autonomously taking them down on your behalf. But we don't stop there. The same real world threats that we're finding are then turned into simulations and role specific training for your teams. So employees are building resilience against the exact tactics being used against your organization. And finally, we layer in threat intelligence as a true partner, making it easy to investigate what's happening, understand impacts, and get clear, actionable remediation guidance so that you can make confident decisions. Instead of stitching together multiple tools, we have one platform that protects your brand and your people and helps you stay ahead of these rapidly evolving attacks. So I know we're all very excited to see what this looks like in practice, but before we do, I'll give you a quick overview of the key components. Let's start with digital risk protection. So this is where we stop threats before they ever even reach your customers. With brand protection, we're continuously detecting impersonation and fraud campaigns across all digital channels, including domains, social media, messaging platforms, and paid ads. And most importantly, we're not just flagging them. We automatically take them down, reducing exposure to phishing, credential theft, and scam-driven transactions at the source. And in parallel, we're protecting your highest risk individuals. Executive protection focuses on detecting and removing impersonation targeting executives, advisors, client-facing teams, especially the types of attacks designed to trigger high-value transactions or manipulate clients or employees. We also identify and remove exposed PII that attackers use to craft more convincing, targeted attacks. Because in financial services, these individuals aren't just visible. They're highly exploitable, and they're often the most direct path to fraud. All of this comes together with threat graph intelligence. Instead of looking at threats in isolation, we map how they're connected across domains, social accounts, ads, and attacker infrastructure so that you can see the full campaign behind the attack. On top of that, we provide deeper insights through analyst-led threat intelligence reports and executive strategy briefings So your teams aren't just reacting, they're understanding what's happening and why. The goal is to give you clear, actionable intelligence and guidance so you can move faster, prioritize effectively, and make confident decisions. Now let's pivot to how we use these threats targeting your organization, surfaced by digital risk protection, to actually help you build a real resilience across your teams. With Doppel, you can simulate multi-channel social engineering attacks across email, SMS, voice, and apps, mirroring how these attacks actually show up in financial service environments today. What makes this powerful is that these aren't one-off phishing tests. They're coordinated, multi-step scenarios built around real workflows, things like identity verification, transaction approvals, and escalations, so you can see exactly where the breakdowns happen. And ultimately, this gives you measurable insight into your organization's readiness while helping reduce human risk and support evolving regulatory expectations. Once you've identified those gaps, the next step is actually closing them. That's where training comes in. We deliver role-specific, threat-informed training that's built off the same real-world attacks that you're seeing. So instead of generic awareness programs, your teams are learning how to recognize and respond to the exact tactics used against them. And finally, human risk management is about being able to measure and prove that your approaches are successful. With risk modeling and insights, you get clear visibility into human risk across users, teams, and workflows so that you can identify where your highest risk actually sits. And just as importantly, it gives you the reporting and evidence needed to validate training effectiveness and demonstrate compliance with evolving regulatory expectations. So now I am so excited to give the mic to Chris to show us what this actually looks like in practice.
Awesome. Thank you, Jordan. I really appreciate that excellent overview and coverage of everything we do here. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and start to share my screen. And we're going to talk a little bit about this in practice. So hopefully everything shows up clear. Is everything showing up okay, Jordan?
Yes,
Perfect.
it looks awesome.
Okay, great. Real quickly, I think I want to walk through a little bit more on just the threat graph, just to talk a little bit about a core differentiator for Doppel. And then what we'll do is we'll walk through kind of showing you a real alert and how we can take that alert, that real modern attack that's targeting you, and generate a potential simulation, or how we would do that and then walk directly into a real live Vish and a vishing campaign that's a multi-channel, multi-step follow-up campaign, and talk through kind of the entire procedure of how we, one, help identify gaps as well as be able to coach and train, and then from there provide insight. So we look at it from simulation to being able to train and coach to also being able to provide user insights. That said, here, this is just showing you a little bit about kind of our introducing our threat graph. Our threat graph here really is the core and the backbone of how we collect real threat and risk entities that we track across multiple places that threat actors are targeting you, and really tie that together to map that infrastructure so you have a visual layer of not only active but also things that we see staged and parked. So we're really trying to emulate a visual that provide that particular threat actor campaign so that you can see exactly how you're being attacked and being able to emulate that within Doppel. So kind of to talk a little bit more about that, let's pop into the platform. I wanted to start with the threat graph insights, which Jordan did a great job of showing you that this is real intelligence. So not only are we looking for the tactical entities or the detections that we find that are targeting you, it could be you as a financial targeting very specific areas based on how to get users to pivot out to places that you don't have visibility, like Telegram in this particular case. So seeing a Telegram fraud ring and a campaign that's targeting your organizations, targeting your groups, your particular teams, we can see here there are a lot of linked entities here. And so we're tracking each one of these. We're continuously monitoring those. We're mapping the infrastructure and providing you investigative summary insights. So now you're not, as mentioned, blocking one entity. You're being able to act and execute at the level threat actors have been using, leveraging AI tools to attack you. We're able to actually take action and take all this infrastructure down by leveraging this particular campaign visual and mapping the entire infrastructure and being able to submit all this to really become more actionable for you. So our threat graph is our backbone. It really captures the presence of what we see from a social engineering defense across multiple channels, and we were able to really provide that intelligence directly in a actual usable way in the platform. So if we pivot to an actual alert, this could be an alert, a domain. We'll leverage this particular applebitscoins.com. There's a lot of information we will provide you, like who is information, looking for MX records, looking for signals that determine malicious or suspicious behavior. But on top of that, leveraging our threat graph, we are mapping every single detection and risk that we see that's targeting you. We're continuously monitoring those. We can start to look at schemes like maybe this particular case, it's attacking some infrastructure around this particular brand. This could be your brand or your third party brands or organizations you work directly with. But we see a couple things that stick out, like pivoting to places like WhatsApp, Telegram, a lot of the places where traditional tools are not monitoring. We monitor telcos, which are also part of the digital layer of detection. So we know that often telcos get missed. And so telcos are our attacker infrastructure that links to WhatsApp and is registered directly to those sites, as well as it links to other components. So this just shows you that one, we see it, we're able to map it and continuously monitor, but not only do that, we can actually take action across this entire stack. So you're not necessarily fighting the ones and twos, you're actually able to start being actionable across the many. And these things can really explode and it provides you the visual. So this is something at Doppel that differentiates us. We've seen this in the space. And as mentioned, we know the impact of social engineering defense based on some of the numbers out there. This is a way to help you to turn that more of a reactive state into more of a proactive state at scale, leveraging AI native components to do that. So kind of one of the things I wanted to talk to on just this particular digital layer and trove of information we're mapping is you can also generate a simulation campaign. So being able to do that, now you can take a modern campaign and turn this directly into a simulation. Okay, so this is something that we're enabling within Doppel. So we're not just kind of creating silos or walls of detections. We want to build a full ecosystem for digital layer and also being able to feed directly into your human layer where we see phishing attacks, smishing attacks. But taking this information and turning it directly into simulation allows us to be more fluid into how we manage human risk. And so popping directly into our human risk platform, we're going to focus on an actual phishing real life simulation. That's going to be a voice clone that will walk you through and show you exactly how we're able to easily stand up a multi-channel, multi-follow-up voice campaign. I'll walk you through that step, but this is one that I pre-staged just to show you when we kick off the simulation here live. But walking you through it, I'll show you just how easy this is by coming directly into our HRM platform. So really walking through that, it would just be as easy as coming directly here. You'll see some of the metrics around tracking various different campaigns. So what I currently did was just really walk in here and type in AWS payment info. And so building this out is very simple. So the channels I want to walk through. So we don't just focus on email. A lot of traditional tools are still kind of in that legacy model of seeing a phishing email come in and then being able to respond. We have multiple channels. So as you can see, we're going to do a voice multi-channel simulation today, but we also manage and monitor for Telegram and SMS, as well as the business communication tools like Teams and Zoom. Why is that important? Well, threat actors are navigating these tools looking for where you do business. And so we want to be every place that threat actors are. And so we know Teams and Zoom are being used more often, as you're seeing with the webinar today. And so we want to make sure we can provide realistic simulations around those very avenues and tools that you're using in your operations, especially in the financial industry. Of course, being able to stand up a campaign, you have the ability to randomize it or build a cadence of how you want to create your campaigns. But as we'll go here, we'll go with the voice and email. One thing that we also are able to do is go into a help desk enabled mode. And doing that, we know help desk, customer support teams, and various teams that are being targeted directly inbound by AI native clones and by modern attacks. We want to be able to provide ways to have simulations that are very similar. navigating IVR trees, being able to navigate hold times, and really be persistent to get to the target, which is the human. We have that ability to enable those modes directly in this simulation. Our voice agents are highly sophisticated. So we've trained our voice clone model over thousands of various different voice and audio agents, various aesthetics, various tone, and just really training it so that it sounds and acts as real as a human would. Of course, we're able to modify and customize that directly for clones that you want to build, which it doesn't take very long to do. 3 to 5 minutes of some voice audio data that you provide us, and we can stand up a clone for you. Okay, so in this case, we're going to leverage our voice agent. Our CEO, Kevin T, is going to be our voice agent. And then phone number listing. We want to make sure the simulations are actually as realistic as possible to simulate sending to regional places that your help desk or your customer support teams are, your regional operators, and everyone in your organization. We want to be able to customize that for you. So we can set that up and configure that and tailor it to your needs. Of course, selecting users. One of the things here, we can actually build out and integrate directly with IDP tools, people management tools. The key here is being able to target departments and departments that you have based around those skill sets, whether it's a sales, marketing, software development team, bringing in all the role-based metadata from those tools that we can actually ingest will allow us to customize targeting for each campaign. So it's not generic in nature, it's not static, it's dynamic to the actual teams, as threat actors would do if they were doing reconnaissance on those particular users or those departments. So we can build out the customization, even build groups that are risky groups, like maybe you've got risk groups that are failing simulations. We can actually create groups around those and customize how we send out simulations based around areas that are weak to make sure those gaps are filled and to increase resilience on each one of those users who potentially are struggling. For today, I'm going to actually just use me in this example, but I could use multiple other users in this particular simulation. Of course, going back real quickly, I do want to show you some of our templates real quickly. We do have a agent ecosystem that we can go out from day one as a client. We will stand up templates that are based around who you are by leveraging this OSINT feature to go out and scour and pull back details, maybe infrastructure details, tools that you're using. So you have real world templates that are based around things that your organization leverages directly from day one. So that's what this OSINT template provides, and there's a list of those from day one. We also have a pretty extensive template library, excuse me, and you can leverage previous campaigns. So in the template library, I'm just going to stand up and leverage this AWS expired one. And as I move forward, again, we want to make sure that we provide remedial training and course study. So the course study is going to be quite extensive right out of the box, of course, default course study, but we do provide long form, short form courses. We provide interactive courses and deepfake content. So imagine having a actual, a deepfake interactive content training course that's actually talking to your users and engaging with them, and it's actually morphing as they respond. So what their responses are, the actual agent will actually interact with that. That's the kind of content we can create custom for you. And so we're able to build that by leveraging our forward deployed and our solution engineering team, who we treat as a white glove service to help customize, tailor, build out content that is specific to your programs, not just from day one, but as your partners and going along the journey with Doppel, we'll continue to iterate on that content. In this case, I'm going to leverage the trending attacks deepfake audio course because, again, we want to start with simulating, being able to train, and then build user insights as we kind of close the loop. And then it's as simple as creating this campaign. And if I click that button, you go back to what you get here, which is this actual campaign. So super simple in nature. So what I'm going to do, you'll get a chance to see a real live phishing simulation. So I'm going to actually go ahead, come in here and view content. Before I do that, you'll just see a quick level of a channel preview. So you'll see a basic script that will respond to how I actually engage with the agent. Again, it's going to be looking to one, target my trust and build an urgency for me to do something. Based on my responses, it will potentially pivot to an email follow-up directly because it's very persistent. And that's how we've trained our clones. So real quickly, I'm going to go ahead and send the simulated attack. Hopefully you guys can hear everything when it rings.
Hey, is this Chris?
Yes, this is Chris. Who's this?
Hi, Chris. This is Jordan calling from AWS support. We flagged your account because your current payment method is expired, and we need to confirm your updated payment details real quick to make sure there's no service disruption. Do you have a couple minutes?
Hey, Jordan. Actually, man, I am actually very busy right now. I'm on a call. I'm on a webinar, actually. Can you do this at a different time?
Totally get it. I know you're slammed. This will just take a minute though, and we really need to lock this in before your access gets impacted. Can we knock this out real quick?
Actually, I don't like giving out information over the phone. Is there any way we can just do this at a different time?
Dan, that's actually smart to be cautious. Tell you what, I can send you a secure link instead so you can verify everything on your own screen at your own pace. Would you prefer that via email or text?
Yeah, maybe email. I'm on a call. I'm on a webinar right now with tons of people. Yeah, that works.
Perfect. I'll get that over to you right now. Just give me 1 second to process that through our system. You should get that in just a moment. Once you click through, it'll walk you through confirming those payment details. Keep it straightforward. Just look for the verify button and you're all set.
Okay, thank you very much, Jordan. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
You're welcome, Chris. Thanks for taking care of that. Have a good rest of your webinar. And thanks again for your time.
Well, at least he was really nice. He thanked me for the webinar. So yeah, again, very customizable based on kind of my responses. But as you see here, I'm showing you really this is what was sent in my inbox. Literally, and we'll walk through the transcript, but was trying to use urgency. I was, quite busy here. And so they will pivot simultaneously during the call and send out a follow-up or a multi-channel follow-up via email. And so if I were to click on this, you can see one, it has my name and information. It looks very official in nature. So they've really gotten a lot better in how a lot of the lures are. I click on this to verify payment details. And then of course, in this particular case, as you would see, logos look legitimate and things look very, germane to what AWS might look like from this particular support. So I'm just going to go ahead and put in, okay, at Doppel.com, and I'm going to use a pretty simple password 1234. I'm going to actually fail it, of course, in this case, just to show you what that looks like. This could be very, similar to what you would see with others. That said, really the goal of this is really to, once you see a failure, you're able to be prompted with a remedial training immediately. Now, this is all fully customizable. As you see, it'll talk about the quiz required. You can review the simulation, which I'll do here and show you. When you review this, you'll see just a few points of the transcript here, and it'll show you kind of the next step and proceed to quiz. So that means our goal is not only to identify the gap, it also is to provide remedial training to start coaching and teaching your teams how to be adept to these types of multi-channel attacks. And so we want to always embed that. I could literally go here and go to the quiz, but for the sake of time, we'll proceed. But having remedial training that's tied to it, that's fully customizable and tailored to your needs, your procedures, your protocols, is exactly how we build this out. So we want to make sure that it is believable for your teams, and so we want to make sure all the aesthetics look very much similar to what you would normally see. So if I come back here real quickly and just refresh, I just want to quickly show you. You'll see all this information change. It'll track the time, the actual call duration times, and all this information's here. It gives you basically some icons on what occurred here. And if I view the content, it'll actually show you a detailed evaluation here. So you'll see quickly, how I deflected, how I refused a request, it might have been shut down. I could be susceptible, to the particular multi-step follow-up there, but it'll give you a quick outline of that all. It'll also show you some of the events here. You'll break down all the events. And of course, as mentioned, the course is here for me to immediately take. So you can train your users on deepfake audio calls and ensure that they're aware of how to handle those situations. Again, one other thing I want to talk about real quickly, we also provide in our simulations HRM advisories. Real quickly on advisories, why advisories matter. It's that whole thought of we're creating threat intelligence, providing intelligence into the platform, and ensuring that that intel can be turned into real launch simulation campaigns, training courses. So this is a fake Zoom meeting advisory. This could be an advisory that's targeting financial institutions in various tooling and behaviors or experiences, building out that threat intelligence strategic intelligence profile and providing that gives your teams the awareness of the latest campaigns that we're seeing. And again, you can create training courses, launch sim campaigns directly off of strategic intelligence that's being researched and captured. So I wanted to highlight that because that is a feature. So we're infusing more intelligence into our training programs to ensure that everything we do stays modern, stays current, it trains users on what we're seeing at in a multiple channel vector in terms of how threat actors are leveraging things, not just one particular vector, but many. And you'll have that information to rely on directly in our HRM platform. Again, moving back to the training course information we talked about some of the forum training that we have, and it's fantastic. Again, it's all customizable for you. We can rebuild it for you. One area that I did not hit on, which is highly differentiating for us, is our AI content builder. This matters. Why does this matter? Well, because we know net new attacks are happening. We know things get occurred. Maybe your C-suite comes in and says, "Hey, what do we know about this particular type of campaign that's targeting our organization? Maybe some other cohort financials, whatever that may be." You can build out content, in literally a matter of minutes. I mean, this could be, some form of we'll just call this Zoom, vishing attacks on, we'll just say FinServe, right? And so I could create something as simple, provide some training goals here. My course length can be anywhere from, a short micro link to longer. And the beauty of this, I can actually start bringing in protocols, compliance. So compliance is big because we know compliance is pushing a lot of the vishing nature and smishing nature that you need to be adept to and trained on. So you can build those compliance standards directly in here. We track it, map everything to it, map benchmarking standards to it. So even your protocols that your help desk leverage, we can put all that in here. So anytime those particular campaigns are going off, those actual users are leveraging the protocols that they would leverage in their day-to-day operation. So we can build this out in minutes and create a real content building, course study and have that course study leverage over and over. So it doesn't take a lot of expertise. Of course, we do have, again, our teams that will work directly with you to help build it all, but it's very simple to build. The training goals could be, again, we'll just say Zoom meeting, phishing. And if I were to go and hit next, it'll literally start to build out the structure for you. You can review some of the course content, and there's also additional objectives you can add. So you can see here recognizing Zoom phishing in financial services, red flags and safe verification steps. Final checks, I can add additional lessons here, and I can go next. And this will build out the course study that we just mentioned. And so now you're building out course study in minutes, leveraging our AI native capabilities to scale out your security awareness program and to structure it based on your needs at any given point in a real-time fashion. So AI content builder is a game changer in this market. I think you have to have it, and it's something that we're bringing to the table as we feel as a way to stay in line and be able to be as proactive as possible as we see threats changing. Last but not least, okay, so we've talked about how you simulate and how we get, modern AI native simulations directly into the platform. We've talked about how to train and really coach because the whole goal is to build resilience with our teams. We've talked about how you can do that. But again, the last piece is really understanding the weighted metrics of insights across users, the training program, and as your attacker insights, your simulations. So the user insights, I love this. I mean, I think this is something that is absolutely really game changing because a lot of times insightful reports really measure clicks or they're measuring completions. And in our case, we want to build real awareness to reducing and measuring your risk reduction. So how do we do that? Well, this particular user we know has been struggling with voice phishing. How do we know that? Well, we can look at our risk score, which is a little bit higher than our benchmark. We can look at some of the things like, is he clicking on links? Is he submitting data? Is he failing certain tactics? We can see drivers here in the channel breakdown. So we see multiple channels, not just email. Voice is at a higher rate, so he's struggling with voice simulations. We can see training status. We can see recent activities. Every time there's a campaign, did he fail? Did he pass? We're tracking this, again, not to be punitive, but to really understand who's risky and how can we help train them better. And of course, we provide recommended actions like here's some email recommended actions, maybe voice focusing on resisting interactive social engineering, how to do that. And we can work on training those users. You can export this information as well. And we've got benchmarks. So maybe your benchmark's a 20 and you see anything above 20, we can focus on these higher risk users and start really reducing risk by the user level. I'm used to measuring telemetry or measuring, architecture or infrastructure, I should say, like IPs. We're measuring people because people matter, and we want to make sure we're across the board really reducing your risk. And then understanding the training insights. So the insights on the training program are telling us literally, hey, are we seeing overdue tests and remedial training and courses? Are we seeing completions? Are we seeing the quizzes being failed and at what level? Are we also seeing things like pending training, breaking down that and users who have incomplete training in this case? So the incomplete training, oh, myself, I'm in here, so I'm at risk potentially. But being able to monitor me and be able to help coach and train and specifically craft simulations and training that focus on my role. I'm a sales engineer, so I may work with certain products and tools that maybe the marketing team doesn't, or maybe the product marketing or the software engineers and all the other teams work with. We want to make it and keep it as consistent and emulated as possible and target and really be able to build an overview of our training program so that we can adapt at any level. And of course, there's ways to filter on groups and department levels so we can dive into those as well. And then lastly, attacker insight. So this will give us the weighted metrics to determine how our simulations doing. Are we seeing higher link click rates? Are we seeing, email reported or data submissions? And being able to track this across the board and look at activity over time, looking at those areas and signals that potentially introduce risk because our users are potentially failing or not able to identify the behaviors of a lot of the modern AI attacks. And we can look at some comparison rates and even look at kind of, some of the repeat offenders. So again, this is really to provide insight and overviews of your program, and you can adapt to those risks at a granular level or even at a holistic level, like you see here, and be able to really, help build a measurable way to reduce your risk by being able to track it at any period, as you can see here, or any department or group that we see fit. So I hope this has given you some insight. Again, anyone who knows me, I can go into deep detail. We can do a workshop or get into a trial and show you how we do this, bring in the actual subject matter experts across our human risk areas as well as our digital risk. And we'd love to be able to kind of walk you through step by step how we can help you reduce risk and show you some of these features in a little bit more detail. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and we'll take some questions if there are any.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Let me go back into the slide deck, and then I have two more slides to cover real quickly before we get into questions.
Sure.
That was a super awesome overview. The phishing simulation gets me every time. That sounded just like Kevin. I think that's so cool, but it's also super important to acknowledge that one of the use cases for this training is not only reducing risk, but it's also making sure that you're following regulatory requirements, right? And all of this data that Chris just showed us, all of that can help you support being compliant with the different requirements as they're coming out. So, really awesome overview, Chris. Thank you. So, what we just walked through, again, that's really why financial institutions are choosing Doppel. So, it's about multi-channel protection and disruption. These attacks don't just live in one place. They span email, social, messaging, paid ads, and even emerging channels, and we're built to find and stop them wherever they show up. Second, it's about giving you visibility into and stopping the entire threat campaign. With Threat Graph, which is what Chris showed us, we're not just taking down individual artifacts. We are mapping the entire attack and removing the infrastructure behind it. And third, it's about building and proving resilience, training your teams with real-world scenarios, and giving you measurable evidence of readiness for both internal stakeholders and regulators. So it's not just protection, it's a complete proactive approach to dismantling social engineering risk. Last thing I have for you today, I wanted to leave you with a few additional resources if you'd like to go deeper. So on the left, we have a vertical brief on social engineering and financial services. In the middle, we have a threat intel report with more data and some trends that we're seeing in the industry. And on the right is a quick overview of how financial service organizations are defending against social engineering with Doppel, including some more information on compliance. So we'll be sure to send a follow-up with these resources after we conclude. And like Chris said, if you're interested in seeing how Doppel could help your organization specifically, you can always reach out to us or request a custom demo at doppel.com/request-demo. So I really appreciate everybody taking the time and being here with us today. Hopefully, this gave you a clear view of how the threat landscape in financial services is evolving and what it looks like to take a more proactive, unified approach to defending against it. And I do see we have about 5 minutes left. So let me look in the chat to see if we have any questions. We do, we have one. How do you see Telegram, Signal, WhatsApp channels? Chris, do you want to take that one?
Absolutely. Yeah, Jordan, thank you so much. Yeah, great question. I think we hear that question quite a bit, and I think that's a growing problem across the industry, across various enterprise organizations, as we see threat actors who are very crafty pivot to places that are end-to-end encrypted or places that are a bit more difficult to navigate. So for Telegram, Signal, WhatsApp, our way of really being able to monitor is we build detections, and our detections will build out a way to map attacker infrastructure, as you saw with the threat graph. So we're able to take a detection and pivot off of a telco number that typically is registered to Telegram, Signal, or WhatsApp. That's just one entity in one way. So we can do multi-level pivoting, and it gets us directly to those channels, to those posts. So we're able to identify when we see malicious infrastructure, malicious activities based around thresholds we deem. And of course, we could walk you through how we build our detection logic, but it's basically going to look for signals that would drive up a certain threshold. And of course, that pivoting out to a Telegram or to WhatsApp or Signal gives us that way to identify the infrastructure and then be able to start collecting intel from those locations, if that makes sense.
Awesome.
Great question.
The only other thing I wanted to add to that real quickly before we move on to the next question is that we submit the entire threat graph as evidence too to support our takedowns. So that's one of the reasons why Doppel is so successful at these takedowns at scale. It's because we use the threat graph, all of the connected threats, the entire infrastructure as supporting evidence to get these threats removed.
Sure. That's great. Any other questions?
Yes, there is a follow-up question about Telegram. Do you have to hook up to each Telegram account as a device? This is how archival works.
Yeah, another great question. Yeah, no, we don't have to hook up as a device or anything. We don't require any device detail or collection or any of that information. We will leverage the way we go out and detect, whether it's matching via text string, reverse imaging matching, leveraging some OCR capabilities, leveraging direct detections from those pivots to Telegram. And of course, we've been able to build a way to pivot out to those varying areas that we see that are suspicious in nature, that don't support your brand or support your protected assets. Which what we call that is basically how we profile your asset suite. So when you tell us who you want us to monitor, we profile that, and then we see deviations from that. In permutations, we can pivot out to Telegram based on that telco number or a particular social media link that's leveraging it. So there's varying ways, but we do not need to hook up to any Telegram accounts as a device. No.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. And we have one more question we'll get to before we run out of time.
Yeah.
What are you seeing as the biggest gap between current defenses and how these attacks are actually evolving? I can take a stab at this one first, Chris, and then if you want to add on. But the biggest gap that we're seeing is that most defenses are still built around static single channel threats. While attacks have become more dynamic, they're multi-channel and they're focused on the human layer, the trust layer. So traditionally, organizations and legacy solutions have focused on things like email security or endpoint detection, but attackers are now coordinating across email, SMS, voice, social, and even paid ads, all a part of a single campaign. So at the same time, AI has made these attacks so much more convincing and scalable. So they're much harder to detect and much more effective at manipulating people, not just bypassing systems. And then the third piece there is that most organizations are still operating in silos. So training, threat detection, and response aren't connected. So even if you do detect something, that intelligence isn't feeding back into how you prepare your teams. So the gap isn't just better tools, it's needing a more unified, continuous approach that reflects how these attacks are actually working today. Awesome. Well, if there are no more questions, I will go ahead and wrap us up for the day. I really appreciate everyone taking the time to join. I know you're all very busy and I appreciate the time. Thank you again, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, guys.